You're listening to Soaring Through the Depths, an innovative New Age podcast. We are Lindsay Marin, integrative multidimensional healer and spiritual mentor,
and Andrea Lauren, spirit council medium, healer, and intuitive life coach.
Join us as we talk all things spiritual, lifting you into the awakening of your divine potential.
Dive deep with us into the body, mind, spirit, and far beyond as we explore healing, expansion, creation, and the evolution of humanity to the next level of consciousness.
This is Soaring Through the Depths.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us here today. I am Andrea.
And I'm Lindsay.
And today we are going to be introducing part 3 of our 3-part podcast series, #Corona Passion, where we are focusing on finding the meaning and spiritual awakening potential behind the events of 2020 thus far. So far, we have touched on switching from fear to trust in part 1 and ending cycles and patterns that no longer serve our highest good in part 2.
So today we are discussing how recent events in our world have made it possible to tap back in with our true self and our self-worth. We will be discussing how this is playing out in the world around us and also offer some tips and exercises to start cultivating your own self-worth.
Yes. So what is self-worth? We found a beautiful definition of self-worth actually on a blog site. So we want to give credit to blog.iqmatrix.com for this definition. But the definition of what is self-worth is an eternal state of being that comes from self-understanding, self-love, and self-acceptance. It's a state that is somewhat timeless and unchanging because it is a direct measure of how you value and regard yourself in spite of what others may say or do.
Very beautiful. I think that sums it all up.
I do too. I think that's perfect.
Yeah. So we were going to go into sort of our own experiences because throughout this whole process of going through quarantine and the events leading up to that state, we've both found ourselves coming into a place of stepping into our own self-worth. And today we want to talk about not just what that looks like collectively, but what it's looked like in our own lives.
Right.
So, So for me, I feel a lot of it stems back from, we've done a lot of digging and a lot of it stems back from childhood, but some of it can stem back from like relationships you've had or just beliefs that you've kind of accumulated through your lifetime. So a couple of big ones for me that I've noticed that I've been finding my self-worth within these themes. One of them was that I am worthy of time and love and attention. I do feel like this stems from being the oldest of 4 kids. My sisters and I are all really close in age, and I feel like I always had to be the one that kind of got that the attention wasn't on me so much because it was on my younger siblings. And something that I've had to learn through this that's affecting me now is that I realized that there were still feelings of there's not time for me, or I don't deserve to be loved first. I kind of get whatever's left over. And actually that sort of came into play with my relationship more recently with my husband, because I was seeing that the kids were getting all of his attention and I felt like I was getting what was left over. And it was this constant state of feeling like I only get what's left over. So really, so kind of digging into that, into the whole child view of it, and realizing that I deserve to be loved. I deserve to be loved fully. And it's not that my parents didn't love me, but this is the way that I saw it. And this is what I took from it. So I've been really working on stepping into a place of believing that I am worthy of being loved and that there is time for me. And that because what I was realizing was I was also making this into a cycle where I wasn't giving time, feeling like I had time for my kids in the same way, especially my oldest. So stepping into this and realizing that I deserve it has made me realize that my kids also deserve it. And I feel like we're healing in all kinds of ways because of that.
Right. And then also giving time to yourself.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you create the belief that there's not enough time for you from others, you almost play that out as, well, then I don't have time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're investing your time and your service and, everything else into other people and not yourself. So I think you've also were able to identify that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So another place that I've noticed this come up is in abundance. I come from a lifetime of feeling like I guess coming from my childhood, I decided at some point that I would never be better off than my parents were at the time, like financially. And I realized that I had this belief and that that's not something that serves me, because why would I limit myself? Why would I limit myself like that?
Right.
So this is actually something that came up for me a couple of years ago. And it wasn't until more recently that I started to realize that even though I recognized it and was ready to change it, I wasn't really doing anything to change it. I just kind of recognized it and then swept it under the rug. So now what I'm doing is I'm using affirmations, which we'll go over a little bit later. But I'm just realizing what I realized in the whole self-worth thing is that I deserve to be abundant. I think for a little while I felt like, and I still have these feelings when I say this, so I know that I'm still healing it, is that I don't feel like I deserve it because I feel like other people might deserve it more and that there's not enough to go around for everyone. So
Right.
what I've been using as an affirmation is that I have enough to be able to give to others freely without like I have enough for myself and for others. I'm coming from a place of, what would be the word? Not be like, I'm not a place of greed. I think that's what I was afraid of, that it was going to turn into greed, but there's definitely a difference.
But you're realizing that it actually comes from a place of worth.
Yes.
That you are worthy of having the all abundance in all aspects of your life, because abundance doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can be an abundance of love, an abundance of, a social setting and all sorts of things. So for you, it's, you didn't want to go into a lower vibration, but it really turns out that it's just about self-worth, being worthy of having those things in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
along
think,
with that, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick too, I wanted to add this in because I was thinking about this when we were going over our topic, and you had mentioned that it doesn't necessarily even mean that we create these beliefs and we see things in a different light when we're children than when we do when we're adults, because we don't have like all the knowledge and background of what it's really like to provide for a family and so on and so forth. But I remember a friend of mine told me a while ago, years ago, actually, she heard me say to my kids, we don't have money for that. They wanted something. And I was like, we don't have the money for that. We don't have the money for that. And I'll never forget her telling me, she was like, you should really change the way that you say that and tell them we're saving our money for something better, or we're, like we're just, there's something better we can spend our money on. So let's just wait. So it was, which I think is beautiful now, because I'm seeing that as it plays out with you, is it's teaching them that it's not that we have lack thereof. It's we're choosing to spend our money wisely, or we're choosing consciously what we're going to spend our money on, and we're saving for that. So not to teach them that lack of. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is something that I consciously have been doing, especially recently, because I'm noticing my kids start to say, but that's too expensive. And I'm like, all right, stop. This is a belief that I had. I've been putting it on you for a while. And now we're changing it.
You do that a lot, which I think is beautiful, because you see, you do that in more ways than one for your kids. Like when you see something that didn't benefit you in a belief system, you're always constantly, correcting that within your kids. So you're doing a
Yeah,
great job.
they will bring it to the surface for you, which is
Yes.
scary and beautiful at the same time.
They are our teachers for sure.
Yeah. I think along with that, with the whole deserving abundance thing, was also realizing in my own relationship that I bring something to the table other than financially. I realized, I think because the whole financial thing was such a big deal for me, that I had this belief that I owed my husband something for him bringing in the money for the past 10 years. I kind of, and well, actually you helped me a lot with this. Andrea was really good about building me up in this and saying, look at what you bring to the table. You keep a house, you raise the children, you homeschool the children, you keep everything in order, you plan activities, you make meals, and really when you put it all out there like that, I finally realized that I am just as worthy of the acknowledgement for that as my partner is for his role
Yeah.
in the way that we cohabitate.
Because
So,
value and worth comes in many different forms, and it doesn't have to be money. In this case, it was because that was a belief that you had to work through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much value in being able to come and walk in the door to a home, not just a house, a home where there's love and there's, compassion, and then you have, you're sitting down and you're having a warm meal and you have people around you and you're talking about your day and all of these things. You provide all of that. And there's so much value in that. It's unreal. And so it really is about just being able to see value and worth in many different ways.
Yeah. Was that part of that definition, was seeing the value of yourself? Because if not, that should be
I know, right?
part of it. It's seeing your own value and realizing that you are a valuable part of your world, your family, your outer world, that you play a part and it's important no matter what it is.
How you see your value and your worth despite what others say or think or do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so
go ahead.
I was going to switch it to you.
Oh, it's my turn now.
Yeah.
So for me, mine, in my experience of what I'm going through with this, is I'm releasing a lot of things from my past that have caused me pain or trauma, or the lack of seeing my self-worth through my own independence and being able to maintain and hold my own energy and not change for those around me to feel that I am receiving love. Because I would do that subconsciously. I didn't realize I was doing that for many, many years, that to be loved, I had to give all of myself in order for them to feel love and to receive it back. And what would happen for me in most cases in all of my relationships is that I would lose myself within them by giving all of myself away. So through this process and the energies that are at play, I've learned how to see my worth in regards to maintaining my own space and my own energy, and knowing that I don't have to give all of myself to receive love from others. And for me, I've learned it even comes down to almost kind of changing my wording. So instead of saying, I love you with all of my heart, or I'm going to give you all of me, it's I want to be able to share myself with you. So it's maintaining that, right? It's the balance. It's like, I'm not giving myself away. I'm going to share what I have with you. And that has been, huge for me, because that's one of my core things that I had to work through for myself. And then I think another aspect of where self-worth is coming through is realizing that I am able to support myself and sustain my own needs along with my values, and that I don't have to change those. I don't need to change my values in order to be accepted, because I just need to be who I am. And those that can resonate with that will accept me and be able to be a part of my experience and my reality. And those that can't, well, it's not serving my highest good. So that was another big one for me. But
yeah, I think that's something that a lot of us do without even realizing it, is because we have this society where we want to please, like the society we live in. It's like we're a bunch of people pleasers, especially when we're outside of the house. And I think there are a lot of times where we do compromise our own beliefs or values because we're afraid of how it's going to be looked at by others.
right.
Or by, yeah. So, or that others won't accept us or love us.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to, being accepted. And what we all want to be is heard and accepted.
Yeah.
If there's any fear. Yeah.
I think we all have a different way that we give too much of ourselves, whether it's you give all of yourself and then you're completely lost, or
depleted.
Right. Or you give so many portions or aspects of yourself, but then you respond to yourself through your self-talk and your thoughts and feelings that it's still not good enough. So you continue to give more and more and more. I think for me, it was the realization of, for me to have a healthy relationship, I have to be able to sustain my own self, my own worth, my values, my own energy, my own space, even down to my own passions and hobbies. Like, because it's not healthy to lose yourself or to give all of yourself. And that was one of the things that directly affected my marriage, was that I thought I was giving everything I had into my marriage and into my husband, and completely lost myself. So it's kind of like, well, what happened to the person that I fell in love with, and so all of these things are shifting and changing in my life. And I'm finding now that as I instill more time into asking myself, what are my values? What are the things that are important to me? What do I want for my life? Where do I see myself going? And saying that, I'm going to come first. I have to be my center. That all of it is starting to fall into place, and it's going to create healthy relationships, healthy lifestyles, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I did want to jump in there and say that, well, we can add this to when we go into more of the advice column, but before I forget it, do not be surprised if you do have relationships fall away because you start stepping into this place. That's something that I think we've both started seeing. And it's not even necessarily that they have to fall away, but they are going to need to change. I know that I know in my own family unit that I've had, with some of the changes that I've brought about in my life, I've had my family really be taken aback by me, and not understanding why all of a sudden I'm so like rigid in my stance of like, no, this is what I believe, and whether you agree with it or not, this is it. Like, this is what's been inside of me all this time. It really is a shock for them. It's a shock.
Yes.
Especially if they're not used to you doing that. And it's going to throw them off for a little bit until they can either adjust, or those relationships might have to change or even end.
Right. And they may not end forever. They may end for a season,
Right. Exactly,
and that's okay, because once again, it does come down to your self-worth. Are you worthy of taking the clarity that you've received about yourself and about where you want to be, and to make those changes for you, having the courage to do that, even if that means that these aspects of your life are going to change? Because at the end of the day, all you have is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no one that's going to be there to pick you up and to create your best life. You have to do that yourself. And so it really is about that courage and that perseverance to do that. And it's with you saying that, I actually heard another podcast that I listened to, a gentleman today said that when you start to work on yourself and you start to develop self-worth and self-value and building up a better life for yourself, the ones that look at you and say, I don't even know who you are anymore, are usually the ones that have never focused on themselves. They've never come into a place where they are instilling the values and the clarity that you are in this time. So you have to be able to move past that and not hold resentment or judgment towards that person for like, well, why can't you see me? I'm still this person. You're growing outside of that. So just remember that when you have relationships start to fall away, like Lindsay was saying, or people questioning like, what is going on with you? What's wrong with you? It's just, they have never experienced that themselves, or they've never put themselves in a position where they are experiencing that. So to them, it looks abrupt and flighty.
And scary to them.
And
it makes
scary.
them uncomfortable. It's like, because yeah, you're right. It's not just that you're changing and they are uncomfortable with that. It's also that you're doing something and they can feel it subconsciously on an energetic level too, that you're doing something that they might be too afraid to do themselves, and that triggers them and that makes them feel afraid.
Right.
And so they might back off because of that too.
And as you start to hold and maintain the vibration of self-worth, self-value, self-acceptance, and everything that falls into that, you naturally raise your vibration in totality. And as you do that, that can also I can't even say the word.
Subconsciously?
Subsequently. Yes. Sorry.
Subsequently, is that it?
Yes. You're going to, it's physics. You're going to pull, like, there are certain people in your life that no longer match that vibration. And so it is going to fall away.
Until at least they begin to raise their own vibration, and then they can get to a point where they can match you.
Right.
And then it may be that they come back into your life in a different way.
Right. And if they're meant to be in your life, then they will come back for sure.
Right.
You know, if not, then what you've gained from that person, you've learned, and you're moving on as you continue to grow, because it's all about growth.
Yeah. So. And you might notice some people growing with you. I've noticed, yes. I have a couple relationships that have actually completely changed in my life and are growing in a completely different way that I never would have expected. And it's really beautiful to witness.
And if you're worried about, like, you're seeing loss in your life because of these things, trust and believe that new people that match your vibration, new things, new experiences will come in. Everything that's going to match your vibration will appear into your reality.
And be better and aid you more in your transformation that you need to do to be the best you and be your happiest you.
Yep. It always gets better. Everything always gets better. The more that as long as you're focusing on your growth and bettering yourself and bettering your life, everything that comes in is going to be an upgrade of where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So let's get into a little bit about what is going on, what kind of changes we've been seeing in the world around us that kind of go along with this theme of people finding their self-worth. So like a couple examples. And I guess I'll start with one of the biggest things I think we saw, and this was 4 years ago, was this most recent election where nobody was really like, there was a lot of turmoil with this. But what happened, and we are not getting into politics, but what happened with this is a lot of people who didn't really care before, or didn't put their energy into who is it that's ruling our country or running our country, started to take a stand and be like, wait a minute. I like, it kind of woke them up in a way where it was like, wait a minute, this isn't okay with me. Where do my beliefs lie? And started forming beliefs or started joining forces with others to try to like band together and get their values and morals out to the world where they might not have before. So I feel like that was really where we started seeing a lot of this shift of people coming back and reassessing, like, where is my self-worth and my value, and how is that being played out in the world? Am I letting other people just do it for me, or am I going to be a part of it?
Right. And that even goes into people that have said, well, I didn't vote in this last election because I didn't think it would matter, but I'm going to because I'm for it, or I'm against it, or, I was for it, but didn't do anything. I'm against it, but didn't do it. I mean, it's in every aspect, where people are feeling, that they can make a difference with their voice, and that's owning their self-worth.
Yeah. 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 And it's all about people kind of becoming more confident in themselves and realizing that they can take a stand and starting to shed off that worry of how will others look at me. So it's kind of what we touched on in our own personal stories, but we are getting to a point where we're seeing protests, we're seeing the whole, like, the racism thing come up. Like, a lot is coming to the surface because people are finally realizing, like, these are my core beliefs, and I can't believe I went for this long without them coming to the surface.
Right. Or just the feeling of, I'm ready to take a stance. I'm ready to speak my truth.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And not worry so much about how other people are going to look at it, or what others are going to think.
I'm going to throw in a joke. Can
I
throw in a joke? Okay. Well, it's not really a joke, but I think it's funny. We will probably see a decline in strep throat and any other illnesses that involve the throat area because people are opening up and using their throat chakras. So this may look good for us and our children.
That was one thing that I wanted to bring up at some point with the whole corona thing, because one of the biggest, like, I think symptoms with corona, if I'm right, is sore throat. And with the time being what it is,
yes,
it's funny that's a big thing, because with the throat, anything with the throat has to do with your throat chakra, which is the energy that basically your throat chakra energy is a channel between everything that's going on up here and everything that's going on in the rest of our body. And it helps us channel and speak our truth.
Yes, they come down, they meet together to come out.
Yeah. Yeah. All of your chakras run through this chakra, like, kind of the energy runs through all of them. And it's such a tight little space. So we have to make sure that we clear it and make room for it. So if you are having throat issues, it may be that you are not speaking your truth, that you're keeping it down and keeping this from flowing. And you can actually have physical pain or physical illnesses because of it.
Yes. And I think we talked about that in one of our, actually in one of these podcasts, just about physical symptoms.
Oh,
so, yeah. And your body being a map of kind of like what's going on with your energetic self.
Yeah. So that is one way to know.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know I had throat problems for years. And the funniest part was that I would get it when I was outside of my comfort zone, and I would sort of shut myself down because I was afraid to be myself until I was comfortable. And it was every time I was flying when I was taking energy medicine classes, and I thought it was because of the airplane, but I really can look because I wasn't getting sick, but I just would have throat problems. But it was because I would go into these situations by myself. It was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And I was scared to death, and I really didn't speak up for myself. I kind of just listened and sat quietly in the corner. And I really do believe that was a lot of the throat chakra stuff that was like, it was like, it's not flowing. And I was feeling the physical symptoms of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate. I had a couple rounds of, actually I had 2 years in a row where I've never had strep throat in my life. And then all of a sudden 2 years in a row, the first year I had strep throat 3 times within 2 months.
Was that recent? Because I had it recently too.
Yeah. It was that. Yeah. That first one was like 2 years ago. And then last year come around, and it was always around the same time too. It was around like January, February. I had gotten strep throat twice. So at that point, but I was aware of, that being a symptom of the throat chakra. And so I really had to, and there was still a lot of fear there, but I had to like push through it. And so I'm happy to report that this year, no strep throat.
Right? Yeah. Same. Interesting.
So, yeah,
We've put in our time.
we have.
We're still doing it.
Yeah, I don't think it ever stops.
Yeah. All right. So what are some other things that we're seeing in the world around us? I think we may have kind of touched on everything we wanted to, but really what it does come down to is I feel like it is a time of people assessing, like, and we did touch on this in part 2 a little bit with the ending of cycles, but it is a time of people looking at their lives and saying, what do I want for myself? What do I want for my family? What do I want for the world around me? And realizing if I don't take a stand for myself, no one else is going to.
Right. And even I did want to mention too, that this plays out. I know you had talked about like the protests and stuff, but even down to bringing it within our communities, because I know that I'm experiencing this. You're seeing it around you because I know you homeschool, but you're seeing it with other parents that that are sending their kids to school.
Yeah.
Is what? Well, hold on. I can tell you, I have not been to very many board meetings when it comes to the school system. I've just always kind of gone with the flow. And this year, I'm looking at the decisions that the school board is making and I'm like, whoa, hold on. Nope, this isn't working for me. And not only for myself, but I'm seeing so many other parents. I'm even hearing it when I go to the gas station to pay for gas, or when I'm in the grocery aisle or wherever, where I'm hearing other people talk about, yeah, I think I'm just going to homeschool this year. Or did you hear the choices that they're like? People are starting to stand up and pay attention to what's going on around them and knowing I'm going to speak up. I'm going to say something. And even if it just comes down to, I'm going to tune into that board meeting and listen to what they have to say so that I can make the decision that matches my value, my beliefs, what informed. I want for myself and my family. That in itself is self-worth too. So it doesn't even have to necessarily be speaking up. It's just tuning in and being aware of the decisions and choices or experiences that are going on around you and choosing what's going to honor you and your best self, and then also your family. Because for myself, my children do attend, they kind of separate schools. I have one in private and one in public, but this year, because of the choices and decisions that the county and the board are taking for the following school year coming up, I've decided that I'm going to homeschool my children. So I'm seeing that there's almost like this feverish energy, especially when it comes around our children and the school systems, that is taking into, coming into play. And I'm seeing it a lot play out there as well.
Yeah, they just made the decision yesterday for our school district, and I didn't get in on it because honestly, that didn't really affect me because I've already made those assessed and made those decisions at some point in my life. I have a whole other slew of decisions to make when it comes to schooling my kids. But apparently the Facebook pages and everything were blowing up with everybody's feelings and
that's funny because ours are
caring, people are taking a stand.
The same thing. I had a few friends of mine actually send me text messages. Did you hear what they're doing? Did you hear the decision they made? I'm like, I already made my decision. So
yeah. So, but we are seeing a lot of this in a lot of aspects of the world around us. And it is the same continuous theme of, we were letting other people make decisions for us for a long time. And now we're starting to get to a place of, wait a minute, this doesn't line up with how I'm feeling and what my beliefs are. And I'm going to do something about it.
Right.
Yeah. I think with that, did you have something to add to that?
I was just going to say, I think it's a beautiful thing just to watch it unfold and play out.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to add to that, or get into with that, is the recognizing the difference between taking a stand and so there are different ways that you can bring your self-worth through, and there are healthy ways and not so healthy ways. So I did want to touch on that really quick to make sure that we're discussing this and teaching you in a way that is going to bring out the highest good for you.
Right.
Because there are a lot of people in these situations who are coming from places of anger, feeling betrayed, feeling afraid, and making decisions based on those things.
Yes.
When we talk about this, about owning your self-worth, that always comes from a place of love. It does not come from a place of being defensive. And if it does, then we're bringing in this lower vibration that is not going to necessarily help us. It might end something abruptly. It might, make a change, but it's not being in the flow. It's creating this lower vibration that actually is taking us out of that flow.
Can I add something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I'm excited. I was like, oh, it just popped up. Okay. So when you are in that place of feeling like you need to defend who you are, you yourself aren't seeing your worth. Because when you see your own worth and your own value, there's no need to defend it, because you're just going to be it. And when you accept that 100% of who you are, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because you know who you are, and you're going to stand by that, and you're going to stand in that, and you're going to operate from that space. So if you find yourself having to defend who you are, step back and reevaluate. Do I believe 100% who I am, what my values are? Do I have my own worth 100%? Do I have my own value 100%? Because if you find yourself in a place where you have to defend constantly, or you're coming in this where you have to take that stance, like that warrior stance against others to get them to understand who you are, then you either A, don't have it all together yourself yet, or B, you're barking up a wrong tree. Because if you have to defend yourself to somebody, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, it really is like trying to prove something to somebody else.
Right.
When we're trying to prove something, everyone has their own beliefs. And as I know in my life, with like when people discuss politics and everything lately, I'm like, you're not going to sway me and I'm not going to sway you. So why waste our time in this low vibration?
Right.
So it really is like swimming in this low vibration in an attempt to get somebody to feel the way that you feel, when in reality, just being like what you said, is just being yourself starts to make the changes. I'm noticing it in my own life with my relationships with my sisters and some of the decisions I've made lately, that I have to set boundaries and say, I'm just telling you what it is that I feel, and I don't want an opinion, but thank you.
Right.
It's setting a boundary. Like I'm just being myself, and I don't need any feedback. Like your does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes
feedback,
perfect
not
sense.
that's unwelcome, but it's not going to change anything.
Right.
I'm living from a place of love.
Love me the way that I am, accept me the way that I am, and I will love and accept you the way that you are. And that's a very good point to bring up, because
even if we don't agree.
Right.
That's part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think the more you step into your own self-worth and value and self-acceptance, you learn to accept and value others for the way that they are, even if it doesn't align with your beliefs. And that's where those relationships will stay together and grow.
Right.
If they don't, if other people cannot accept you for where you're at, then that's okay too. And that's also a good marker for yourself to know, am I valuing and owning who I am authentically 100%? Because although it may hurt or be a disappointment for you that they can't, you will still be okay and be able to move forward, even if they're not moving forward with you.
Yeah. There are some instances too where things are just toxic. Yes. And there is no, waiting for acceptance or accepting that other person. Sometimes it just needs to be abrupt. And those are like, more few and far between, but it does happen. So there is a time where you need to realize that things are toxic. This person is not going to see me for who I am, and they're actually doing something detrimental to me. And that's when you do want to cut those things off. I just wanted to throw that in as a disclaimer, because not everyone is going to have that ability to come to that place with you.
Right. There's this saying, it's like, you cannot reason with an unreasonable person. So if they're just not getting it, they're not seeing it in all aspects. When you're dealing with them, that's where you really have to evaluate, is this healthy for me?
Mm-hmm. And
And
sometimes that is owning your self-worth, is stepping out of that situation where you've been battered or abused or taken advantage of, stepping away from it and realizing I don't deserve that.
right.
Yeah. One of the, I want to throw in a little example of, because it just kind of came to me, was one of the times that I really saw myself step into that. And it was the first time I really realized that I hadn't been living in that place. It was during a fight, like an argument, me and my husband and I were having. We were having this argument about God knows what, but the way, and it wasn't that he was like bashing me or anything, but it was the way that his language that he used to talk to me. I stopped him and I said, I need you to realize that the language you use toward me is what your daughter is going to think is acceptable for someone to say to her one day.
Yeah.
And that like changed the whole game of like the way that we argued. And I know, but I had to realize it for myself too. The way that I was projecting myself toward him is what I was teaching my kids also, that, you know, that this is normal and this is okay.
Right.
And yeah, so it really came back to a place of like, I don't tolerate that. And I don't want to teach my kids to tolerate that. It was setting a boundary basically. Right. And he was great about it afterwards. It was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize how I was saying that to you, and that could have, have an effect.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if that ties in completely, but it was just,
no, it does. It
okay.
ties in. I think it's just a fortunate, situation, because you might find yourself in other situations where people, once again, coming back to just cannot reason, they can't understand. And that could be because of the beliefs that they carry, that they've learned along the way, and they haven't gotten to the point where they're able to see, the truth behind those belief systems, like we talked about in part 2 of what no longer serves you. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, another thing that I want to touch on, because we brought this up in the beginning and kind of mentioned it, but it change in language, the way that we speak is a direct reflection of where our self-worth lies. We mentioned that in the beginning when you were saying about your friend catching you saying, we don't have money for that.
Right.
And I've noticed it in my own life, like especially with the abundance, but also with just, it is about like paying attention to the language that you use. And if you are saying like, I can't do that because, or if I do that, this person will be upset with me.
Yeah.
It's catching yourself in those moments and saying, well, what is that? What do I really, does that align up with what I really want for myself? Is what I'm saying lining up with what I feel inside and want for myself?
Yeah. That makes sense too. And then also even down to like when we were talking about the going into warrior stance mode for your own truths, because that is a part of your worth, is owning your truth. And that could be the way that is spoken in the beginning. If you find yourself going into that dominant role that I'm going to speak my truth, or this is how I feel, or if, you are responding to somebody who is saying something and you're speaking your truth in regards to that situation, if you find that dominance there, take time to stop and ask yourself, how can I relay my truth in a way that will be heard with love and compassion? Because that is value too, because that is holding the essence of who you are. Because if you're growing and you're evolving in the spiritual awakening, or within yourself as your soul, you're going to find your peace and your groundedness within love and compassion. And so it's really important to make sure that when you are speaking, that you're holding your truth and your worth in that sense as well, not just in defending your rights or your truths or your worth. So
yeah, and that is bringing it from a place of love, from bringing
right.
it from a place of your true essence coming through.
Yeah,
instead
totally
of a place
agree.
of
Yeah, because even if you, on both parts, again, it comes down to communication. Lindsay and I were just talking about this the other night, is that, you know, with communication, your truth is your truth and their truth is their truth. And you could be trying to communicate that between the two of you or trying to even help each other. But it could simply just come down to your wording, you know, like, this is my truth.
Yeah.
And the other person may not quite understand, or they might see it or perceive it a different way. And that's where you have to stop and say, okay, I understand where they're coming from. What could I recommend to this person that could help me to be able to see their truth in a way that's not going to make me defensive or feel like I'm being attacked, and vice versa? You know, like, how can I speak my truth and you hear it without you taking it as I'm attacking you because I'm just trying to help you? Well, this is what works for both of us, you know, finding that common ground to where you're both speaking your truth. And that really works in a relationship where two people are on the same page and they're growing together. So that's also a good inclination of that. You know, you'll know that you're in a relationship, whether it be platonic, romantic, a work relationship, a friend relationship, that where you are able to grow together, is where you can, you know, you can come together and be able to hear each other.
Yeah, I think, well, with you and I, at least, like, we always end up being on the same page, but sometimes it takes a little while for us to get there. And it's like, I'll come at you with something and you come back with something, and we think we're both on two different different pages. And it turns out that all along it was just like a little tweak in the way that we communicate makes us realize that, oh wait, that's exactly what I meant. And you're like, that's exactly what I meant, which is always like funny after the fact.
Right.
But it is like, sometimes you do have to go back and forth a few times to realize, like, what is it that you are trying to convey to me, and what is it that, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, as you start to do that, again, that self-acceptance and the value, and then you start to see that you are finding yourself being able to do that for other people. Like, in this sense, you know, I can look at Lindsay and find value and appreciation in her, even though she's complete opposite of me. I find the value and the gratitude and the appreciation within her and what she's able to, you know, offer me in my life. So
something that I've kind of adopted over the past couple of years is I like to look at people and see where they are passionate and appreciate them for their passion, and not necessarily be turned off by what they're passionate about. So I know, like, for like my cousin who is very like feminist, and like she was like going to protests and everything. And I was like, well, I don't really feel that in my life. But I'm really glad that you're passionate about something. And I love seeing that come out in you, where you're taking a stand on something that's important to you. So it's like, even if you don't see eye to eye with somebody on what it is that they're passionate about, just being like grateful to be able to see the passion ignited in them. It's a beautiful thing that we often miss because we're so worried about what it is that person's passionate about.
Right.
And it not lining up with us.
And you could take that and spin that into your own life and ask yourself, what am I passionate about? It can help you explore more about yourself, because like where you were saying, you know, instead of it turning me off, well, I don't agree with that. Most people do that. They look at things and they're like, well, that doesn't align with me, whether it's their religious beliefs, their political beliefs, their beliefs about money, marriage, whatever it is. We're like, well, no, I don't agree with that. We collectively see more of what triggers us and what we don't like, instead of asking ourselves, like you said, wow, that's really cool that they're so passionate about, what am I passionate about?
Yeah.
You know, so taking that and putting a positive spin on it, and asking yourself and evaluating your own life, what makes me feel that passionate? What drives that spark and that energy within myself? So, you know,
in a healthy way, not a defensive way.
Find opportunities in every area of your life and every moment of your life to use it to grow and expand and find positivity and upliftment and everything, because it's all around us. It's always there.
It's just a change in perspective. It's just how we look at it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about a couple other ways that we can start cultivating that we can cultivate our self-worth within our own lives. So we did touch on a lot, a little bit in like, not so much in list form, but kind of giving everybody the feel of what it feels like to step into this place and what it shouldn't look like when,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So let's knock them off as sentences. And if you feel you need to add more, pop it in there. All right. Okay. So the first one is realizing that you have a choice to make. So when you come to this place that you're finding that you're ready to step forward, or you're seeing these things play out in your life, you have a choice to make. You're going to own your self-worth, value, acceptance, and appreciation, or you're not. And if you're going to choose to do that, then you have to make steps and strides towards that. And with movement comes change. Stagnicity does nothing for you. So it is very important for you to not ride the fence. Make the choice to either accept this and make these changes in your life, or to not.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah.
And then another one, sorry, I realized it's my turn, is perseverance. Perseverance, I think, is a big one, because it really is about walking by faith and not by sight. When you are making changes in your growth and in your life, and actually changing belief systems, you're really resetting and recalibrating the foundation of who you are. That is not something that is going to happen overnight. Everything on that level is a process. So perseverance is going to be your best friend. Walking by faith and not by sight is going to be your motto, because when you do that, you're not going to be so consumed with, am I making progress? And seeing that play out in a physical form, you're going to just know that by you making these steps every day, every moment within your life, that eventually you are going to get to where you need to get to. And you could go, I just had an experience in my reality yesterday where I've been going through tumultuous things within my life, and it just kept going and going and going and going. And right when I got to the point where I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. It's just so much. Literally, I had one experience in one evening, and the very next day I realized that all of those things were healed, and the clarity that came from that, I was able to move forward. The things that were causing the pain and the uncertainty within me, questioning myself, am I moving forward? Am I doing what I need to be doing? Literally changed in one day. So that is where that perseverance is going to come into place. And you just need to have that faith that as long as you are making these strides to move forward, it will come.
It will have a ripple effect.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't see it instantly. Yeah.
Yep.
Just being in that vibration and keeping yourself in that space, you're vibrating at a different level where things will like rear up and get ugly, but they will release without necessarily you having to keep analyzing them. And
yes. And we live in a society where instant gratification is the new norm.
Yeah.
So when we have to do things that involve a process, it's a lot. People tend to have a harder time with that because we're so used to instant gratification.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that here. You know, it's going to take time, but you got to have that faith that it's going to be there.
It's going to be so much more worth it.
Right. It's more of like, instead of
have a better result.
Yeah.
Did you? Go ahead. Sorry. No, that's it.
Okay. I was going to say, instead of instant gratification, it's more like sneak attack, you know, like it comes in when you least expect it. And you're like, I'm healed. I've changed. Yeah. You're like, whoa, it actually applied. And you'll see it because there will be another experience that will come into your life and you're going to stop and be like, I didn't feel that way. Like I didn't feel X, Y, and Z. And I handled this completely different and I stood my ground. And then you're just like, you know, you're like doing a happy dance. You're like, look at me go, you know, it's just there. So,
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Get rid of instant gratification and look forward to the sneak attack.
Yeah. I think along those lines is really allowing yourself to meet yourself where you are. So you do want to take an inventory and say, okay, what am I doing in my life? And does it line up with what my core beliefs are for myself? So there's me wanting to create abundance in my life, but underneath of everything, I have these old beliefs of I can't afford that. I can't provide for myself. So I had to take an inventory and realize like what I see for myself in the future does not match up with where my current beliefs are. And I really had to meet myself where I was and start from there. Start building to release there so that I can open up for those opportunities.
I like that. That is really good. Get it, girl. Take an inventory
Yeah.
of what are the things that you fear, because those are the things that aren't serving you.
Mm-hmm.
And how can you change those?
Yeah. To match up with what you truly desire.
Right.
Yeah.
Know where you're at and what you can give at that time.
Mm-hmm.
See where you want to be, and then break it down into tangible steps.
Yes, it is all about breaking it into steps, because it does seem, if you do go from, okay, this is where I'm at and this is where I want to be, that is really overwhelming for a lot of people. I know it is for me.
Yes.
So it is breaking it down. It's not just breaking it down into physical steps. Sometimes it is like, well, I'm going to get another job, or I'm going to do, it can be a physical step, but it also is an emotional and energetic step. It's, I'm going to stop believing this way.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with however that works for you best. But,
and even having, go ahead.
No, I don't know what I'm going to say.
I was going to say, even having a plan for that.
Yeah.
The next time I feel this way,
right.
I'm going to read this Post-it note that I wrote and says, I am worthy of abundance. Like, so if there are certain things that are going to trigger you on a deeper level, have a plan for that. How are you going to pull yourself out of that? How are you going to retrain your brain? Because it is all about retraining yourself out with the old and in with the new. So the best way to have success with that is to have a plan for when those moments occur in your life. How are you going to get yourself out of this?
Yeah. And one of those, because of what you just said with a Post-it note, that's like one of my number one things that I do. I write notes for myself all over. I have some that I look at every day. I have some in my phone. I have some written on my, my daily calendar. And actually recently I took inventory for myself and really decided to make a list of affirmations, words of positivity, of things that I want to create in my life. And I took some time, and didn't take long. I kind of added as I went, to actually write down all the things that I want for myself and I desire in my life, and all the things that I feel that I should be in my life, not should be, but that I want to be in my life.
Yes.
And I actually brought it over here with me so that I can look at some of them, but I wrote down a list of affirmations. One is, I attract abundance. I have enough to give to others without hesitation, of thinking that there's not enough for me if I give away too much. I love myself unconditionally. That was the big one, because I think you had said that, something about, we can love other people. Like, you can't love somebody else unconditionally unless you love yourself unconditionally. And that one struck me hard, because I was like, I never even thought about whether or not I love myself unconditionally. I stay centered and grounded at all times. I confidently navigate my life. I am strong. I am connected to God and all that I desire. I am successful. And the list goes on. I am abundant. I am peace. I am love. I am merged with my true authentic self. So who is in here is the same as who you get out here. So these are just some of the things that I've been saying to myself. I know you've been doing a lot of this too with affirmations, like just to say, I am strong, I am independent, I can take care of myself. It's one of the best ways that we can start making changes, is because we have this, I don't think you realize, like, I know I don't realize until it's brought to my attention, how much negative self-talk runs through my head all day long.
Yeah.
And that can be like when you're sick. I notice when I'm sick, I'm such a baby. And it's like, I hear it in myself. I'm sick. These are all the things that are wrong with me. And I want to tell everybody, these are all the things. It's like, I want you to know what I'm going through. And what I realized more recently was I would get a lot better of a result, or I do get a better result when I start to say, I am healthy. My body is healing itself. My body, whatever it is that I'm going through, it's for a reason. It's, it's to teach me something. Maybe it's to teach me to slow down and take a break. Maybe I needed a break from the world.
You've taught me that. And even when you're feeling terrible, like you're feeling like crap, you got to look past that. Again, it's the eye on the prize. Who are you? What do you want for yourself? Because like when Lindsay taught me this, I'm not going to lie, it took me some time to actually believe it. And I just told myself, well, I'm going to fake it till I make it. And whenever, I think I had like 2 times after that I had gotten sick, and I kept telling myself my body is resilient. It is a master healing machine. And it's like I was living in this reality that I was creating of what I thought my body was. And literally within 2 days, I was better. Even though I felt like complete crap when I was telling myself this, I healed exponentially. So it really is that self-talk, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We do it all day long. And usually we're talking about things that aren't serving us. So really one of the biggest factors in owning your self-worth is really looking at what is it that I'm saying to myself all day? And does that match up with where I want to be?
Right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Good job.
Thank you. You too.
So
right. Anything else we want to add in?
There was one other thing that I wanted to add in, and that was taking all of this is like big change, and it looks like a lot of work, and it is in the fact of you really are recreating who you are on a core level. But again, perception is everything, because it really is baby steps, aim small, miss small, and be easy and gentle and kind with yourself. But the number one thing that I think both of us would say that we want to portray is don't forget to have fun. Don't forget to find joy and happiness in your life. And you are responsible for your own happiness. Find what makes you happy and live that. Like, that is what it's all about, is to be in that place of happiness and joy as much as you can be. And then stepping into a place of playfulness and creativity. I know for me, I found myself that I had created this pattern because I was overwhelmed and stressed out and going through all these things in my life, that taking the time to play with my kids or to find creativity, to create creativity with them was more of an obligation than it was the joy of being able to spend that time with them. And when I would step into that, again, you kind of got to fake it till you make it. After, 10 minutes sitting with them, I found that was the happiest I'd been all day, was when I was sitting with my kids and playing with them and finding creativity. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to just be with children. If it's going outside into nature, or if you like to paint or create things, wood burning, playing an instrument, whatever it is, just find time to let yourself be playful and bring creativity into your life, whatever that looks like for you, because it's kind of like that old saying of, time flies when you're having fun. It's the same thing. The universe can come in and aid and benefit you, because that's all it wants to do. That's all God source energy wants to do, is to better you, better your life, better your experience, and put you on the right track. And the more that you step into that vibration of love and happiness and joy, playfulness, creativity, you are allowing the emergence of that, the new beginnings to come into your life, the new awareness of loving yourself to come into your life at a much more rapid pace or speed than you would if you're so focused intellectually on, I got to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. So they kind of go hand in hand, which is nice.
Yeah. I think it really, it kind of gives you a place to, when you're doing those things, you really can't be in that intellectual space of what do I have to do? How am I going to reach my goals? And it's kind of like a form of meditation. I notice that the best clarity for me comes when I'm driving, when I don't have to think so much, when I'm in the shower, or when I'm being creative or laughing, or, because it's turning off that part of our brain that's trying to overanalyze so much that we're blocking the guidance from coming in naturally. Right. So when we can take a step out of that, it does allow for those things to flow through. And it just allows flow of energy in general. When we're creating, it's flow of energy. And if you're not passionate about something, find something that does take you out of that brain space.
Yeah.
whatever that might be. And you
And
might find clarity there.
Yeah. Don't worry about being flighty or, well, I didn't follow through with that. Screw that. If it doesn't make you happy or you're not passionate about it, drop it and find what makes you happy.
Yeah.
It makes me think of that saying that they say, you'll never work. It's when you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of to make this experience as easy and as flowy as possible. Do it through love, do it through joy, find happiness, find that joy, find the things that bring you passion and ignite you, because that is going to heal you on a far greater level and more rapid speed than you trying to physically do this with your
and
mind.
Analyze everything.
Right.
I think that's something that I need to work on because I'm constantly analyzing.
Don't we all? Because I could say I'm in my heart space a lot because I'm a very emotional person, but emotions trigger thoughts. So they do go hand in hand. And it really is going to come down to conscious living.
Right. Yeah. Being conscious of everything you do, where you're putting your energy,
your thoughts, everything.
Yeah. Where you're putting your where your thoughts are, taking inventory.
Yep.
And then seeing how does that line up with what it is that I want for myself?
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. And then finding, in just acknowledging that, you're going to start closing the gap between that disparity between where you are and where you want to be.
I agree. Boy, I think we hit the nail on this one.
Yeah, we did.
All right. Well, I think
wrap it up.
Yeah, I think this is going to wrap it up. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in with us on this episode of our podcast, part 3 of #CoronaPassion, finding and owning your self-worth. So next week we are going to be talking about, all about empaths, how to know if you are one, and ways to see this gift as a blessing and not a curse. So if that resonates with you, make sure to tune in with us next week, because that is what we will be talking about.
Yeah. And you might not even know you are an empath yet, but we all have empathic abilities. So
perfect. Yeah. So everyone tune in.
Yeah.
And then you can find out if you're one or not.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us this week on Soaring Through the Depths. Make sure to visit us on Instagram and Facebook at Soaring Through the Depths, where you can catch important news, information about upcoming shows, free giveaways, and exclusive content.
While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on Podbean, or you could simply tell a friend. Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe button now. Until then, this is Soaring Through the Depths
with Lindsay Marin
and Andrea Lauren.